So I think the way to not have as many excuses is to find a plan that doesn't feel like you're having to overhaul your entire lifestyle overnight to try to make fitness a part of things. You want to fit fitness into your life. You don't want to try to fit your life, into your fitness regimen.
I love that. Hey, I'm Greg Grunberg, and welcome to Talk About It, the podcast where we focus on topics that everybody should be talking about, and hopefully they will, or not only talking about, but screaming about.
Epilepsy shouldn't keep you from doing anything that you want to do.
Talk about it. Talk about it. Talk about it.
This season, we are going to continue to talk about living with epilepsy, like my son and millions of Americans who do. We're also going to be looking at other related conditions and causes. Our goal is to knock down, drag out, eliminate stigma, and raise awareness. Oh, and hopefully have a laugh or two along the way. Each of our episodes will feature amazing advocates and champions. We will learn together how to make a real difference in our own lives and in the lives of our communities.
Talking about it is important. It's all about connecting.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Talk about it. Talk about it.
Talk about it.
Thank you for talking about it.
Thank you for talking about it.
New season, new look, new sponsor. Thank you to Neurelis and everyone at Neurelis for sponsoring Talk About It. Talk About It is also sponsored by Jazz Pharmaceuticals. Thank you, Jazz, for always being there for us. All right, let's jump right into this episode of Talk About It. Welcome to this episode of Talk About It. So, I usually don't get excited about fitness. I gotta be honest with you. Not my thing. When someone says, hey, let's go work out, I'm like, I'm sorry, you broke up. I pretend like I'm on cell phone, even when we're together. Not the thing that I love to do, but I do get it done. There's a Peloton bike right there. For those of you who are watching this, I just showed my Peloton bike, or as I like to call it, the best place to hang your pants after you get home. Listen, this episode is one of two. This is a two-parter, all on health, fitness, and diet. And I turn to the guru, today's guru. He's incredible. His name is Dylan Holvey. Oh, Dylan Holvey. Who's that? Are you familiar with that? I am, because he's my nephew. He's the best fitness person to follow online. He also has a ton of amazing clients that he sees in person, but he's very knowledgeable, very practical, and he's incredible. Now, we're also going to be talking to a friend of the podcast who has been on the podcast before. I'm just teasing it because he's incredible and he has a lot to say about health, fitness, and nutrition. So stick around for that. That'll be later in the episode. But remember, this is part one of two parts on health, fitness, and diet. Ooh, I'm cringing just thinking about it. But guess what? It's awesome. Check it out. All right, so let's bring in my nephew and an incredible fitness guru. I'm calling you a fitness guru, Dylan Holvey. Dill, how are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on. I'm pumped to be here. And it's going to be exciting. Hopefully we're going to be able to help some people and motivate some people to get started with whatever fitness goals they have.
Your feed, the content that you put out is so unique. You dispel a lot of the kind of the bull that's out there, and the people will use things just to, as clickbait and freak people out and, just to get eyeballs. But you are very practical with how you talk to people that want to get fit. I mean, why and how did you sort of want to take that approach?
Well, I see the same content that everyone else does. And I think a lot of it is very sensational. People just make content just to try to get as many views as possible. But one thing that's a little bit different with me is that my business is working with real clients in person and online. So it's not just the content itself to just try to get as many likes as possible. My own clients are seeing the stuff that I'm posting. So if I give them BS advice on Instagram, they're going to come to me in real life and say, what is this? This is completely different than what we're talking about during our personal training sessions. So I think the trainers that work with real people give much more practical advice, and it ends up being much more helpful to your audience. And I'm very fortunate that I've been able to grow a little bit of an audience giving more like real practical advice, because a lot of people tend to go with that approach of trying to make bold claims just to go viral, even though they know deep down it's probably not what's in their audience best interest.
Yeah, and I can relate to almost every one of your posts. If you're listening to this or if you're watching this, you have to start following Dylan. I recommend being a member or looking into, if you're looking for a trainer. There's just everything you do, everything you say is very relatable, and it doesn't seem overwhelming. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because we have a lot of people watching who want to get fit, and they just see this insurmountable thing, and not just with weight loss, but maybe they're worried about their seizures, or they're worried about this or that. And I know you don't work with people with disabilities per se, but I think we can all learn from the questions I'm going to ask you and the answers that you give, because it's all practical and it's just that motivation. So I thanks for being on. And where can people find you before we'll do this a couple of times, but where can people find you online?
Yeah, so if you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at Dylan Holvey Fitness. And then you can also listen to my own podcast. I put out a new episode every Tuesday. It's called The Holvey Hour, wherever you get your podcasts.
The Holvey Hour. All right. I love that. And it's a half hour, which is even better.
It is. It's a half Holvey Hour.
Exactly. Okay. Are you ready for the questions?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. As a fitness guru, can you successfully exercise at home without a gym?
You definitely can. And I would say when it comes to my online clients, about half of them work out at home, about half of them work out at the gym. If you're going to work out at home, it does make sense to have some adjustable dumbbells and maybe an adjustable workout bench too, maybe some bands as well. But you can definitely get a great workout in just training at home. If you can, work with an online coach like myself, or even just follow people online and get exercises that you can do. Now with ChatGPT, it's never been easier to just get exercises, and you can literally input in ChatGPT, this is the exact setup I have. This is what I have to work with. Can you give me some good exercises that I can do? I'm going to work out 2, 3, 4 days at home. What can you give me? And you'll get some good ones. You can definitely work out at home. When it comes to strength training. And then in addition to that, you can just try to get as many steps as possible by getting outside, getting some walking in. I think people really underestimate the power of getting that movement in. You don't have to get 10,000 steps a day. That's kind of a number that people just kind of pull out of nowhere. I always tell people, if you're just starting to walk a little bit more, just average about 1,000 more steps than you're currently getting. And that's a really good place to start.
I love it. And I recommend, when you're doing those steps, to listen to The Holvey Hour.
Great. Kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Exactly. Why not? All right. So for a lot of people, whether they have an issue or they don't have an issue, doesn't matter. Everybody's got something. First of all, we preach that all the time. But if you are looking at just starting after not exercising for so long, how do you get started exercising if you feel intimidated by it?
What I always say to people is you want to start off with whatever feels most realistic to you. I think people make this mistake of assuming that more is better, that they need to be in the gym 6 or 7 days a week. And if they're not doing that, then they're consistently falling short. You want to come up with a workout frequency that you can realistically adhere to every single week, even if that's just 2 days a week in the gym or at home. More isn't better. Better is better. And you can get a really great workout program created for you if it's just 2 to 4 days a week. But recognize that sometimes setting the bar too high too soon can be a big mistake, because if you consistently fall short of it, you'll feel like you're not doing enough. But if you kind of even set the bar a little bit lower than you think you should right away, but consistently live up to it, you'll feel really good. You'll build self-efficacy and just be able to kind of slowly raise the bar from there. But don't feel like you need to bite off more than you can chew. It's a big mistake that I see people make early on. They have an all or nothing mindset with this stuff.
I love it. All right. So let's talk about those incremental results. What should someone expect by quote unquote results? What does that mean? Does it vary from person to person in their exercise routine? And how long does it take? How long should we expect? I'm talking about people that are just looking at this and saying, I really want to do this now. The one thing that I've learned from people with issues is when you say the word you can't, all they want to do is do it. So I actually want to tell people that are watching, you can't work out. You just can't. Give it up. And hopefully that will motivate them. I mean, everybody I talk to in our community and just in the world, they want to take control. So results. How do we measure them? What's the best way to do that so you can stop someone from being discouraged that they haven't met those those results that they've cast that are too big?
Well, on the fitness side of things, one of the great things about starting off as a beginner is you can make progress very quickly. You can get stronger almost every single week. You can notice your heart health improving drastically by doing cardio. Your endurance is going to improve very, very quickly. On the weight loss side of things, I think a really good goal for people to have is losing about 1% of their body weight each week would be a really realistic goal. But on the fitness side of things specifically, I always tell people it's a really good idea to track the weights that you're using and how many reps you're getting so that you have this objective data to work off of every single week and try to just do a little bit more the next week than you did the previous week. So even if it's just doing one more rep with the same weight on one of your exercises, it doesn't have to be leaps and bounds every single week, but tracking things and having it that data laid out in front of you is a really good way to ensure you're making progress because it's not ambiguous. You know exactly what you need to do the following week to beat what you did the previous week.
Okay. I'm just going to look at this camera right now and a big, I told you. He's amazing. Dude, you're amazing. You're amazing. Your answers are so great. If you haven't noticed this already, you can understand what Dylan's talking about. He knows what he's doing.
Coming up on Talk About It.
You didn't screw up. You didn't make a mistake by falling off the wagon. You're just living your life. It's years and years of consistency. You shouldn't look at your fitness journey as something that you do for a few months and then stop, because you're going to have to be continuing to do this the rest of your life if you want to maintain the results that you get anyway.
We're talking fitness. Yes, getting ourselves into patterns, not having to do it all at once, making small improvements so that our health can be sustainable. This is so relevant to everyone, but especially if you are living with a condition like epilepsy. For many people, maybe you want to do better, or maybe you want to just stay the way you are. So you have to develop these habits that are going to stay with you for life or as long as you can. This goes for your diet too. You know, what you put in your body, it can make a huge difference in how you manage your epilepsy. If you watch or listen to Talk About It regularly, you know our special guest and a friend of the podcast, Joey Hanley. He owns Fearless Sports Performance, and he was on a few episodes ago. He's a baseball coach and a trainer who lives with epilepsy, and he also has some important perspectives when it comes to diet and exercise. Given his diagnosis, given his line of work, he was the perfect person for me to reach out to with some specific questions. Here is what he had to say about the importance of maintaining a healthy diet. Everything that you do, it's all encompassing, right? So I'm sure you give advice on nutrition as well. And I know eating as well as fitness, it all goes hand in hand. So what do you tell people about just general nutrition to stay healthy?
So to me, like if we're talking strictly to athletes, right, you only have so much time to play, to do what you're doing. So fuel up the best you can so you can recover, so you can be, cognitively functioning better, so you can have, better sleep and whatnot. So when it comes to nutrition, you can get into the complexities of it, but at the end of the day, I think it's a really simple thing, but people still really miss out on it.
Now, someone who has experience in the world of epilepsy, because I know from Jake, from our oldest son, right? You and I have talked, at length about this, but Jake, he does a version of the Atkins diet, right? Where he cuts out all complex sugars and all white anything, no potatoes, no rice, whatever. He gets plenty of carbs, but he gets it from salad and from healthy things. Do you think in those terms too? Like as far as, fueling your body? Because you use the word fuel, which I think is really important for athletes and non-athletes.
Yeah, for me, I work with a nutritionist, so a lot of it's based around body composition goals, performance goals. And by performance, it's pretty much just like not passing out while I coach.
Right.
So a lot of the carbohydrate sources I get are almost all rice and sweet potato, along with just some vegetables and some fruits. So mine are pretty simple.
We've heard about the ketogenic diet, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, and that's such a restrictive thing, and that's very, very, that you have to do with a nurse and with a doctor, under a doctor's care. But there are versions of it like the Atkins diet that I know personally, when I have sugar, I have donuts, I have something, I'll have this moment where I'm just sitting there. So food definitely affects all of it, and especially the brain.
When it comes to food, when it comes to just sort of our modern nutrition, like what we're putting in our body is generally really bad for us, like what we get at the grocery store and whatnot. The easiest food to find is the worst for you as well. So when it comes to somebody who has something that's going to cognitively impair them, you're in your best interest to put something in you that is, meant to be food. There some people who call it like God's diet, like whatever was put on earth to be food is what you eat. You don't eat like processed stuff, right? And like there's a time and a place definitely to enjoy yourself, to indulge, and to celebrate. But when it when it comes to your health, there's really nothing more important. Like for instance, my grandfather had diabetes, and he would always say, I would rather have my legs than have some sugar. So I think that when it comes to something like epilepsy, you don't want to be put in a position where you're having a seizure in public, or you're making something worse, or having any sort of setback and you feel physically uncomfortable. And I would personally rather have my own comfort over my body than have a piece of cake, as hard as it is to not have a piece of cake. And I'm in a position personally where I can eat a little bit more foods that aren't so great for you and not have too much of an issue. But there's definitely a noticeable thing where if I have too much sugar, especially sugar, if I have too much sugar or even not enough to eat, I'll have some, focal issues throughout the day.
Yeah, I think that's really important for everybody that's watching or listening to this. Is first of all, obviously consult with your doctor if you want to get into the minutia of it. But just feed your body healthy things and stay as healthy as you possibly can. Because I don't have epilepsy, but this stuff affects me and it affects everybody. So give yourself, like you were just saying, give yourself the best chance. Why put yourself in a position where you're going to give seizures or epilepsy? It's kind of fuel for it. We talked to Jake about that. Jake will say, why am I going to give, epilepsy and cancer too? Cancer, they need all this stuff to survive. So you give them, and I'm not a doctor, I don't know what I'm talking about, but I just know the healthier that you put things into your body, the better chances you are of staying healthy and staying away from the things that affect you, like seizures. Let's say you do, start the exercise, your routine, and you're doing it and everything, and something gets in the way, either a wedding or you go out of town or something, and you stop after a short amount of time. How do you avoid the frustration? What do you tell people to motivate them to get back on that, that horse?
Well, I think the biggest mindset shift that people need to make is recognizing that the annoying part about fitness is that you have to keep doing it the rest of your life to get good results. So just like you're not going to make all your progress in 1 week, you're not going to lose it in 1 week either. I mean, if you go out of town for 1 week, you're on vacation, you can still be consistent all the other 51 weeks out of the year. And by the end of the year, you'll end up being 90-something% consistent. So just getting right back on track when it comes to something like a vacation. I mean, it's summertime right now, bookending that trip with consistency on each end. So, right up until you leave, trying to be consistent with your workouts. And then as soon as you get back home, getting right back on track. You really can't lose much progress being out of your routine for a week or even two. It's not about the 1 week of being inconsistent. It's your response to that and recognizing that you didn't screw up. You didn't make a mistake by falling off the wagon. You're just living your life. You just have to get right back on the horse the following week and recognize that will accumulate, that consistency over time. But it's years and years of consistency. You shouldn't look at your fitness journey as something that you do for a few months and then stop, because you're going to have to be continuing to do this the rest of your life if you want to maintain the results that you get anyway.
And I have no idea what that's like.
You don't.
I work out in 3 week spans and then nothing for 2 months. And then,
I know. Well, to me, the hardest day is that first day. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe like the hardest day is day 2 and day 3. Yeah. Because day 1, you're excited. You're like, you know what? I've made my mind up. I'm going to do this.
I just bought a new thing to work out in.
Yeah, look at these new shoes.
My new year.
Yeah, exactly. Like, here we go. And you get up and you do it, and then you feel great. Yeah. You really feel great. And you feel that good sore, the next day if you're doing some weights or even walking, whatever. Then day 2 and day 3 come, and you're like, okay, maybe I just, what? It's not healthy to do the same, to walk twice. And, so, getting day 2 and day 3 under your belt, I think then sets a real pattern. How do you feel about setting those patterns?
I think that's the most important thing, because anyone can be consistent for a day or two, but how can you keep up the habit? And that's why, I mentioned earlier the importance of finding a plan that feels realistic for you. You don't have to be doing it every single day. It's important to give yourself rest days, to give yourself a little bit of that time away from it. I think it makes you appreciate the days that you are moving your body that much more. But to your point on day one being the hardest for people, that's so common, but that's all the more reason to not stop, because if you don't stop, you don't have to have that day one continuing to pop up over and over again, where it's so hard to get yourself back into the gym or back into your routine. So even if you just commit to 2 or 3 days a week of, having some sort of fitness regimen in place, it's much easier to adhere to it because you don't have to be on point every single day. There's more balance in your life.
And I think when you're consistent with that, no matter how small it is, or, if you do 2 days a week, you're going to get the bug to then increase. You just are. You're going to get to the place where you go, oh, you know what? Yeah, I will do that hike because now I can. And then you're going to do that hike and go, wait, I can do a hike every week. Now you got 2 days of walking and 1 day of hiking, or whatever it is. So it's just, you're right. It's just starting with something you're comfortable with that you can then repeat and make it great. Yes, we want to exercise, but we also want to have fun, Dylan, okay? And I know your clients have a good time. You have a good personality. You make things fun. But somebody that's not able to have, someone like you in their life, can't afford it right now, how do you make exercise, or how do you make fitness fun?
Find one thing that you can do each week that feels enjoyable to you, whether it's going to a workout class like a Barry's boot camp or a Soul Cycle, that type of thing, whether it's going to a Pilates class, whether it's going for a hike. Some people love running, some people love yoga, whatever, even if it's just playing pickup basketball with your friends, or pickleball or padel, people love nowadays. That's a new thing. Whatever it is that makes it feel fun for you to just get out and move your body. Because like you said, once you start, it does become addicting. It's that snowball effect where a little bit of momentum leads to a little bit more. And before you know it, you're someone who is moving your body very consistently. You just have to start with something that's feasible for you in the short term, and finding something that you can hold on to, you can look forward to each week to move your bodies. That it's just that much more important, because I always recommend to my clients, you can do workouts outside of what we're doing here together, as long as you feel like it's something that you can stick to because you really enjoy it.
And I think people will be shocked to learn what also constitutes fitness and exercise. Like, you and I are in a band together, right? When we rehearse, and we go and go and go, and then you just jump into the next song. Before I know it, I'm winded, but I'm pushing myself, and I'm able to do it. And it's mental, which we have a bunch of mental questions for you, Dylan, because a lot of this is mental. But I find myself, I'm just dripping sweat. I'm loving it so much. So I would just encourage people, find what that is. Like you just said, find a class. Well, if you don't want to pay for a class, I walk with a bunch of buddies. We call ourselves the Penguins because we kind of walk like penguins, or we started off doing that. And now I picked up on this trend online where you walk for really as fast as you can for 3 minutes, and then you walk for 3 minutes. Then you kind of walk with purpose for 3 minutes. And it's great. Yep. And I feel great. And and now 40 minutes has gone by. I go 20, I park my car, I go 20 minutes out, 20 minutes back with these guys. And I don't wait for them to keep up with me. I'm like, guys, sorry. And I'm just more fit than they are, but they are great. Shout out JD, shout out Smitty. These guys are awesome. And I love getting together with people who are less fit than me. It makes me feel better.
It makes you feel great about yourself, right?
Exactly.
Coming up on Talk About It.
If you come up with this laundry list of things that you think you have to focus on that day, I have to get 10,000 steps, and I need to get to the gym, and I have to do this and do that. It feels daunting when you're just starting. The hardest part is going from doing nothing to doing something. So try to bridge that gap by starting with something really small. Within a few months, you'll actually notice that you've gotten some pretty good results off of that alone.
Hey, I wanted to break out again to talk to Joey about fitness. Obviously, he's a fitness guy too. And when it comes to fitness, he knows more about that and epilepsy than anybody else I know, since Joey is an athletic trainer who has epilepsy. He's used to pushing his body to certain limits as a trainer in order to maximize his performance. But are there risks to doing that? And what does Joey think about fitness if someone with epilepsy is trying to avoid certain conditions that could trigger a seizure, right? You don't want to push yourself so hard that you actually trigger a seizure. It seems counterproductive. Here's Joey.
I think it's important that you understand triggers, like what does it feel like when you get triggered? Some people, if say they're lifting really heavy weight and it's strenuous and you start to kind of, the blood vessels are on your face, you get that, red in the face. It might be important that you understand like that probably isn't going to be healthy for you. If that's something that maybe could trigger you, start with your triggers and then work backward. Like, for me, high stress is what really triggers my seizures. So if I'm going through a stressful phase in my life with business, with family, whatever it is, I generally stay away from really stressing my nervous system too hard in the weight room, because I know that can just compound stress, like more stress on it. And like in the sports world, when you build up fatigue over and over and you get that chronic overload, that's when injury happens. So if you think about it from that perspective, that would almost be me intentionally injuring myself, because I'd be chronically, stressing myself out, physically, mentally, and just on my nervous system in general. So I think that if you know what it is for you, you should probably avoid as much, climbing to the ceiling of what that issue is going to be.
I agree. And also, hyperventilation can cause seizures. So if you're going to be doing cardio and you're doing it to the point of exhaustion for an hour, you're putting yourself in a difficult situation. You don't need to do that. I'm just saying from personal experience, I know, that I've seen that happen to Jake, and you don't need to do that. If you're consistent, if you're walking and you can have a conversation, that's good. You're walking, you're doing your thing, or you're pushing yourself. Just don't push yourself too hard. And like you said, it's an individual thing. And if you're worried about it, talk to your doctor about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's something that it's, you don't want to play risks with that. You don't want to gamble, because it just takes one fall to change your life. So you want to make sure that you're being put in the best position as possible. And we obviously can't, walk around with bubble tape on all the time, but we also need to understand, like, we're not invincible. We're not well, I don't want to say Superman because I'm a Batman guy, but we're not all Batman. At some point we have to understand, where is our limit. And I think once you're out of the athletic world, your performance needs to be shifted toward, your daily life. How good of a student can I be, an employee, a husband, a father? What can I, how good can I be at that? And I need to perform at my best. So you can't perform at your best if you're unhealthy.
For people like myself, that I want to get working out of the way, and I want it to take up as little of time as possible. And something that's really in vogue is HIIT training, high interval intensity training. I've heard, conflicting things, like it's better for you. You lose weight faster, or it's dangerous, and blah, blah. So can you kind of talk holistically about high interval or high intensity?
And is that something you should do every time you work out, or save for once a week?
If you're going to do that, I recommend keeping it to 1 to 2 times a week max, because there's a higher recovery demand with something like that, as opposed to just getting out and walking with your friends. So it's not something that you want to do every single day. But I will say there are some people out there who really enjoy that style of exercise. They don't feel like they got a great workout in unless they are on the floor, sweating, heart rate super high. And if that's you and you really like that feeling of really being pushed, kind of that workout class type mentality, then definitely do it. But I would try to keep it to 1 to 2 days a week max, because if you're doing that and you're strength training, it can be a lot for your body to recover from. But in terms of the high intensity stuff, I do recommend keeping it mainly to weights, because there's certain benefits you can get from that you can't get from doing cardio. You're not going to get the strength benefits. So that combination of strength training a couple days a week and walking would be a great place for someone to start if they don't have anything in place already.
Let's talk about excuses, because man, do excuses play a huge role in why I'll be like, I always say on my tombstone, I want it to say starting tomorrow, because everything I'm like, tomorrow's going to be a great day. Or I'll throw in the white flag. I just throw it up and I go, I'm going to eat whatever I want. I already ate something crappy today, so I'll make the whole day a crap day. But that's not the way to look at it. I mean,
I feel so seen right now.
I know, right? Yeah. Everybody listening to this is like, me too, Greg. I'll meet you at the fast food joint. So excuses, how do we deal with them? How do we get out of making excuses?
I think the best way to approach it is just to recognize that there's always someone out there who's dealing with something more extreme and they're doing it. They're moving their body. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've seen people at the gym who are in wheelchairs and they go from machine to machine doing what they can do and making it work. There's one of the great things about fitness is because there's so many different ways to approach it, whether it's strength training, cardio, classes, whatever you like doing, there's always some way that you can go about moving your body. And when you try to stick with what feels enjoyable for you, fitness doesn't feel like as much of a chore. I think people will have the most amount of excuses when they feel like the program they're following isn't realistic for them. Like you alluded to, you walk with friends. It probably doesn't feel like exercise because there's that social element to it. So I think the way to not have as many excuses is to find a plan that doesn't feel like you're having to overhaul your entire lifestyle overnight to try to make fitness a part of things. You want to fit fitness into your life. You don't want to try to fit your life, into your fitness regimen.
I love that. I want to stress that everybody has limitations. Everybody does. Find what you're comfortable with. Talk to your doctor. There are certain things about increasing your heart rate too much. Everybody's got something and everybody's got their limitations, but that doesn't mean that you can't comfortably find your level of fitness. So talk to your doctor, talk to your healthcare team and find out what's right for you. What advice would you have for someone who's just starting their fitness journey? Like, is there one thing that you tell people when they've never done it before? And you're like, all right, I'm sure it's different with every client, but is there one thing that you always go to either motivate or to not freak them out?
I think it comes back to just doing one thing every single day that allows you to win the day. When you rest your head on the pillow at night, do you feel like you moved the needle just a little bit and you're a little closer to where you want to be? If you come up with this laundry list of things that you think you have to focus on that day, I have to get 10,000 steps and I need to get to the gym and I need to track my calories and I have to do this and do that. It feels daunting when you're just starting. It's like any other area of your life. If you focus on just kind of low hanging fruit behaviors and just make that one thing every single day, if you can check that thing off the list, you got better that day and you got a little bit closer to where you want to be. And like you alluded to earlier, it'll be so much easier to add more to your plate once you already have a routine in place. The hardest part is going from doing nothing to doing something. So try to bridge that gap by starting with something really small, one thing every single day. And if you do that, it will add up. And within a few months, you'll actually notice that you've gotten some pretty good results off of that alone.
I love that. As always, thank you for joining us for this episode to talk about it. And remember, next episode is going to be part 2 with my conversation with the amazing Dylan Holvey, if I do say so myself, as his uncle. He is so great. Again, you got to follow Dylan. He's just fantastic. And you should be following Joey Hanley as well. Joey is just incredible. These two guys are a wealth of knowledge, and we have a whole other episode coming up. So don't miss that. We're going to see you next time. Right now, I have a walk. Walking is good, right? I am going to walk about 1.125 miles to, there's a donut shop. I need a destination, okay? Don't judge. Don't judge. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Talk About It with Greg Grunberg. Sponsored by Neurelis and by Jazz Pharmaceuticals. Thank you to our special guests for joining us, and thank you J.J. Abrams for the theme music that you're hearing right now. Talk About It is produced by Ken Lowenberg, Greg Grunberg, and Nick Marzok. Editing, directing, and incidental music by Nick Marzok. Go to talkaboutonvideo.com to watch these episodes, and as always, don't forget to talk about it. This podcast is a production of the Talk About It Company and Motel Podcasts.